Sorry, small technical issues on my side. Hello, Klopp. Hello, Ashes. And hello. Hello. I said hello. Sorry. Uh, yeah, I guess hello, Witch Queen of Samra. I think Pixie usually calls you Queen Jayla. How was your day treating you, Klopp, Ashes, Queen Jayla? I hope nicely. Today we're continuing playing Shuen no Virche, Air Salvation, autumn visual novels about, well, looking at the misery of the protagonist and good boys who are, by coincidence, our love interests, and seeing the story of Arpichel, of death, and horrific events happening here. We finished first 3 routes. We finished the route of Mathis Claude, the route of Lucas Proust, and the route of Cian Brofias. And right now, we can start route of Yves that was unlocked yesterday. If anyone needs a quick remind of the events in common route, like before starting Yves route, feel free to tell me. And also, Yves is a best boy. I
場所は
just
知っている。時は知っている。失われるものも知っている。しかし、万人は何もせず、その悲劇のすべてを見届けた。すべては、あの日の契約を果たすため。常に決まった笑みを貼り付ける乾ききった表情は、赤き悲劇を見届けたその夜だけは、それは醜く歪んでいた。
Ash is saying, I'm doing alright. Multitasking, but fairly relaxed. It's nice to hear after all the busy day you've had recently. I wish that relaxation will last longer, for longer. And Klopp says, I was totally lazy today. Did nothing except yapping about Pathfinder, and you're the one of the witness. You're one of the witnesses. Yes, I am, and I was yet again ensured that you're not to be let anywhere close to creature that possess abilities to modify spells or do something with objects. You will bring capitalistic horrors into my fantasy dreams. And that's even one of the best cases. A gentle smile, a gentle voice, a strong arm holding me, a large hand patting me on the head. And a terribly sad smile that bloomed amid the black flowers of the garden. The image of my grandfather's smile still remained strong in my mind.
ねえじい様。
Not only, but yes. Crisis of overproduction is what I see in your appearance.
どうしてこのリコリスのワージュたちはこんなに綺麗なのに国中の人から嫌われてるの？
Each time I came here, I would trouble my grandfather by asking that question time and time again. My grandfather usually responded with a gentle smile, but said nothing. For some reason, today was
理
different.
由ならお前も父さんや母さんから習っただろう。このリコリスのワージュの花はただでさえ短い我々の寿命をさらに削り刈り取る災いの花であり。
うん、それは知ってる。だから父様も母様もこの花園が枯れればいいのにって毎日言ってるんだよね。でもだから不思議なんだ。じい様はどうしてそんなに嫌われている花を毎日俺に見せようと連れてくるの？
そうだな。
Seeing me tilt my head in bewilderment, my grandfather closed his eyes in thought.
いいかイブ。私たちの血筋にはね、遠い昔に大事な友達から託された使命があるんだよ。
使命？
そう。自分の命よりも大切なものだ。もう少し大きくなったらお前にも教えてやろう、イブ。私たちとは違い、災いの花すらも美しいと愛せるお前のその純粋な心だけはどうか永遠に失わないでくれ。お前のその愛こそがこの呪われた国に必要なんだ。
Why did my grandfather smile at me so sadly? He did tell me more a few years later, but those crimson flames burned away the majority of my memory. And there's one fellow, says Klopp, who was listening to my madness, and he answered, "No зачем, Holmes?" In a country cursed by death, the regular loss of life was felt by all. The people accepted it as part of their daily existence. Now that Bourreau, whose sudden murders disrupted this flow, had died himself, the people were all somewhat more accepting of my presence, and didn't show as much hatred or disgust toward me as before. But they were still keeping their eye on me, since there was no telling when a similar tragedy could repeat. Now that things had settled down, I returned to my duties at the orphanage, helping Mother with the daily chores. If I had to name one thing that changed after those incidents, it would be...
なあセレス、チビどもが引っこ抜いた雑草はどうすればいい？火を起こして燃やしちまうか？
Huh? Well, I don't think there is much to burn yet, so can you leave them in a pile next to the garden? And make sure you and the others don't get too close to the licorice flower bed.
んなの言われなくても分かってる。植えてもないのに勝手に増えるから迷惑だよな、この災いの花。
I know it's a bother, but we can't cut them down. We'll die the moment we try.
なら燃やして一掃できるんじゃねえの？
That's a really bold thought, Mila. If we might die as a result, do you think it would be worth the risk? I was finally able to have these kids these kinds of casual chats with Milo and the others. Profias, the founder of the reliable technology that supported this country. Dahat, who worked in research with him. Mathis, who sought revenge against Boron. His loyal butler, Shan. While I had met many others, getting to know these people in particular must have given me the courage to make changes in life. Apart from the children here, I was also speaking a lot more with Lucas after his lessons at the orphanage. And the biggest change thus far had to be...
やあ、セレス。今日は天気もいいし、絶好の花壇手入れ日和だね。
Hello, Yves. You're looking very well today. A very kind handyman had been coming to see me quite frequently. Hugo wasn't with him today, but he had been accompanying Yves and playing with the children if they had time. Ever since the incident, Yves often visited us to see how things were going. He didn't say it, but I felt he might be worried about me since I had witnessed so many horrors within a short period of time.
お、今日は子供たちも花壇の手入れを手伝ってるんだ。いいなあ。賑やかで羨ましい。うちの花壇の手入れはいつも俺一人で寂しくやってるから。
Alone? Does that mean Hugo isn't great at taking care of the garden with you?
災いの花が群生してる花壇なんておぞましくて絶対に近づきたくないって。
だからって外観で唯一映えるのが災いの花の群れってのは店としてどうなんだ？
大丈夫なんですか？これ近づいた瞬間に死んだりとか。
大丈夫大丈夫。みんなも知ってるでしょ。リコリスは傷つけたり伐採しなければ何輪生えてても周囲には影響ないから。
I suppose it does take some courage to walk past them.
そこまで嫌がるほどかな。結構美味しいのに。
Did you just say something? Speaking of Yves' culinary abilities again. I mean, I kinda respect his desire to cook. Or just eat, I'm not sure. These flowers that are supposedly killing everyone who tries to destroy them. Klopp says, imagine getting close to those licorice flowers and taking a big sniff in front of everyone. I would do this. For sure. Eve smiled brightly and shook his head.
君も繁殖したリコリスに困ったらいつでも俺たちに頼ってね。子供たちがうっかり触れたら大変だろうから。
Yes, I'll let you know if we'll need help. I was very happy now that I could talk to my new friend as comfortably and frequently as this. That said, I was a bit more worried than happy lately. Eve, I've heard from Adolphus that you've been getting a lot of orders at Korun ever since the incident. I'm worried about you spending your free time with me like this.
俺がこうして会いに来るの迷惑？
Not at all. I'm happy to see you come visit every day. But it still makes me wonder whether I'm taking up your time when you have more important things to do.
忙しいのは否定できないかな。今日も依頼からの帰りにこの施設へ寄ったわけだし。でも俺だって別に 単なる心配や親切で君に会いに来てるわけじゃないよ。
Huh?
友達になったばかりの君のことをもっとよく知って仲良くなりたいからこうして会いに来てるんだ。言うなれば俺の勝手な都合と感情だから君に時間を奪われてるだなんて思ったこと一度だってないよ。
Okay. I'm happy to hear that. I was certainly happy, but hearing him say it so casually and upfront gave me a ticklish feeling.
それに
Huh?
今日ばかりは少し事情が違ってね。実は君に個人的な依頼があって話をしに来たんだ。
A work order? He wanted me to do something when he was able to handle anything and everything? Eve asked if I had some time now, so I invited him inside the orphanage for some tea. Eve took a sip, and the next thing he said was something I never expected. Huh?
この子をクルーンの一員として一時的に雇いたい？
I blinked a number of times at his sudden request out of nowhere, which surprised both me and Mother. Eve, who was sitting in front of us, scratched his blushing cheek.
実は君がさっき言ってた通りブローの件で名前が広がった影響か最近舞い込む依頼の量がかなり増えてきたんだ。以前は存在すら認識されてなかったシュリーやセルネボルからも依頼が舞い込むようになってきて。
That's a good thing, right? Klopsas Darius asked me to tell him about Magus from Pathfinder. Then you have chosen death. Seeing Eve with a perplexed look on his face, I chose my words carefully. I could tell from his expression that being so busy might be both good and bad, at least at the moment.
それこそ最初はリライバー化の資金がたまるって俺もヒューゴも喜んでたんだけど依頼が増えるにつれてだんだん最低限の家事や細かいお金の管理にまで支障が出てきちゃって。
I couldn't help but feel sympathetic. It must be hard since it's only you and Hugo at Kurun.
それで人手不足に陥った結果、この子を補佐として雇いたいと？
はい、彼女の家事能力には俺もあの共同生活の中でかなり助けられましたから。
He also mentioned that he heard from Rodolphe that I helped with bookkeeping for the orphanage. So Yves lowered his head and asked for help with the daily chores and bookkeeping at Kurun until things settled down.
ああ、もちろん全ての家事を押し付けたり無茶な依頼に付き合わせるつもりはありませんよ。俺とヒューゴも一緒に作業するつもりです。
あなたの人柄はよく知っているし、その点については全く心配していないけれど。
Mother looked at me, as if to confirm my expression.
この子がクーネに行くならまだしも、長く働くとなると周囲の人間がどう思うか。
I see. I'd love to help out, but if my being at your place makes you into a target for gossip,
女の子の噂話一つで左右されるような仕事をしてきたつもりはないよ。何かあったとしても必ず守るって約束する。それでも怖くなったらいつやめてくれてもいい。だからどうかな、軽く検討するだけでも。
seeing Eve calmly and persistently convince us led me to a new question. Why? Why do you want to hire me, of all people? There are a lot of others who can handle housework. People trusted him too, I was sure that if he asked, there would be a lot of people who'd be willing to help. Even if we were friends, why would he want to hire someone known as Death? I really couldn't answer the question myself. I posed my question to Eve, at which point he crossed his arms and frowned in thought.
そうだね。そう聞かれると俺自身パッと思いつかないんだけど、誰かに頼るってことを意識して真っ先に頭に思い浮かんだのが君の顔だったんだ。
Huh? Eve continued in a somewhat guilty tone.
だから悪いけど、どうしてとはっきり答えることはできない。単純な話、俺の思いつきだから。けど、考え直したところで、多分結果は変わらないと思う。俺は君がいい。君に助けてほしいんだ。
Help? Me? He's strong and kind and has a lot of friends. And he wants me to help him. He was personally asking me for help. No one thought of me like this before. I lived my life as someone weak, someone who always had to rely on others for help. To be honest, I was beyond happy just to have Eve as a friend. But I knew that I shouldn't get too deeply involved because I might bring him misfortune as death. I also knew that I should convince him to ask someone else for help. But
で、断りづらい雰囲気にしてごめん。俺も無理強いしたいわけじゃないからね。考えがまとまるまでいくらでも待ってる。ゆっくり考えてみてよ。
as long as I need it. I was so grateful for his kindness in giving me the choice. Okay. Unable to bring myself to refuse his offer, I could only nod in acknowledgement. I'm sorry. I'm not speaking well today and always. At that, Yves stood up from his seat. He then reminded me that I was free to refuse his offer before departing for Kurun again.
返事を保留にしてしまってよかったの？本当はすぐにでも引き受けたかったんじゃ。
Mother inquired with concern as she picked up the teacups. Adolphe usually avoided associating with others, but he introduced Eve as a friend, showing how much he trusted him. Which was probably why Mother hasn't tried to stop me from accepting the job offer. It also meant that Mother would happily agree with what I decided, whether I accepted or refused, but this isn't just about me. If I'm going to accept Eve's offer, then I need to make sure I'm mentally ready for it.
少し心配しすぎだと思うけれど、せっかくお友達ができたのだし、あなたはもっと外の世界に出るべきだと思うわ。なんて過保護にしてきた私が言うべきことではないかしら。
Please, don't say that, Mother. I was able to reunite with a very precious friend because you kept watch over me. Which was why, in order to protect my precious friend's life and turn, I had something very important to consider.
司祭は語れないが、この国にはまだまだ死を招く花の種子が芽吹いている。この短い間に君が歩んだ奇跡は所詮序章に過ぎないのさ。自ら命を絶つ異様な死も、理不尽によって奪われる死も、この国の呪いに蝕まれ儚く散っていく死も、あるいはまだ日向にすら出ていないさまざまな死も、何一つ 解決していない。
Was I really safe? What did he mean when he said that to me? I wanted to at least know the answer to those questions before I could give Eve my answer. Sorry. After finishing dinner with the children, I calculated today's costs in my room as I thought about that ominous warning. Assuming what Uncle said is true, how he is suppressing my power of death. Perhaps even now, we still haven't really solved the case of Burrow and the mysterious suicides. Uncle said so himself, but I remember hearing that Burrow didn't have any data backed up at the institute, so he wouldn't be able to revive. So, what did he mean back then? We don't know who Burrow is. We don't know the cause of those unusual suicides. They were unsolved mysteries at that point. The little information we did have seemed to raise even more questions. The royal family's declaration that Burrow disturbed drugs was just an assumption. If those suicides were really the result of dangerous drugs, the same thing could potentially happen to those I knew. For example, someone like Eve who asked me for help. Eve is still with the core, so if I stay near him, I could help him and get access to information if something should happen. Of course, there was a concern that my presence would somehow negatively impact the lives of those in the core. But staying here silently wouldn't help. And if something bad were to happen, it would be too late to do anything about it. If so, I'm sorry. After a few days of deep thinking, I finally came to a decision. Eve came to visit again, and I let him know that I would like to accept his offer. Eve responded more enthusiastically than I expected.
本当に助かるよセレス。頼りない天使だけどしばらくの間よろしくね。
Yes, yes, I'll do my best to be of help to Eve. If you're hurting me, should I call you something different? Like Monsieur Eve or Boss or something?
柄じゃないし今まで通りの呼び方でいいよ。クルーンには上下関係も何もないからね。それにせっかく友達になったのにまた他人行儀に戻っちゃうなんて寂しいじゃないか。
Okay. Well, I look forward to working with you, Eve. Eve seemed a little embarrassed and chuckled a little as he blushed. Later, we talked to Mother and confirmed the conditions of my working with them. First, I should commute to his office instead of living there, since I needed to manage my work here and because of my curse. Second, he could take me along with him for work, provided that I wouldn't be in danger. Eve actually listed out a number of conditions, at which point I noticed every one of them prioritized my well-being, being of little benefit to Eve depending on the work at hand. Mother repeatedly confirmed whether he was okay with the conditions he presented, but all he did was nod wholeheartedly.
その悪意があるよりずっといいのだけど、彼 いいように利用されやすそうな性格で心配ね。
I agree. I wonder if is actually making any money in
そ
his
れを
work.
管理するのがあなたのお仕事ということでしょう。
Hello, Witch Queen of Samara. Or, as Pixie calls you, Queen Jayla. I've seen you've been here quietly from the start, but I'm glad you decided to write in the chat. Nice to see you coming here, and I hope you will enjoy the stream. How was your day? How are you feeling? If I may ask, you don't have to respond, of course. Don't feel forced, please.
セレス、彼が変な依頼人に騙されないようしっかり見守ってあげなさい。
After making my decision and discussing the details, I found myself still worried. A few days later, my first day at work finally arrived. I avoided the busy streets of Queen and proceeded through the suburban area with similar houses lining the road.
久しぶり。もとい。改めてようこそ。俺たちクルーンの拠点へ。君と一緒に働けて嬉しいよ。
Yves greeted me with open arms as he stood fearlessly next to his licorice flower bed. Hello, Drunken Annie. Nice to see you here. Thank you for following me back and thank you for coming. It's good that your time zone catches what I have to offer. It is a visual novel. It is a visual novel. It is Otoma visual novel, which means visual novel, romantical visual novel, generally oriented on female audience. Consider me to be just sort of a bug. I should warn in advance, despite having its sweet and heartwarming moments, it's also a lot of time can be extremely harsh, grim, and anxiogenic. And of course you can bark when you find a character hot whenever you like. You're welcome to say or meow or bark, whatever you like. Oh, this is actually Ishtar Whale. Sorry, sorry, I didn't recognize you. My bad. I'm sorry for confusing you with another person. It's good to hear that your day has been decent enough. And Drunken Annie, how was your day? How was it treating you? You look really happy, Eve.
そりゃね、開店してからずっと俺とヒューゴの二人きりだったから、一時的とはいえ仲間が増えてくれるのが嬉しくて。
Huh? So you've never hired anyone else before, ever?
一応過去に仲間は募集したんだけど、いろいろあってみんな1ヶ月もしないうちに辞めちゃったんだよね。
Within a month? Maybe the job was a poor fit for them. Or maybe the nature of working with handyman was too varied. Due to our short life expectancy, it wasn't common to see people change professions requiring different skill sets. It wasn't because of the country's laws, but rather because many were relievers. The process required them to create a clone as soon as they were able, which would be fixed in a state that would never age. What this meant was their knowledge and abilities gained through their lives couldn't be changed or erased. For example, if a reliever merchant who worked at the Marcia changed professions and became a member of the Corps, no matter how much training they underwent, their clone body was already fixed, so nothing would change, not even their build. Worse, their lack of fighting experience would carry over to their clone body, so it was an uphill battle to hone their fighting skills. Ultimately, their experience as a merchant would become their calling due to being the path of least resistance. Which was why there weren't many relievers around who could work multiple jobs. It's all good, Parsian, says Whale. Do you mind if I'll call you Whale, as on joystick? No worries about making a mistake, it happens. Errarum humanum est, as it said. Humans are prone to errors. Just in case, I'll give you a short, brief introduction to some setting rules, which may be a little confusing since you're joining in media res in the middle of the story. You see that island government, Arpeshal, is considered kind of a cursed land because people here are dying at the age of 23 or earlier, and so far it seems like nobody had ever lived longer, as long as everyone remember. However, some time ago, about 80 or 100 years ago, Cian Brofias, a genius, invented a reliable technology that allows to create clone bodies to which the memories of a person can be downloaded, and thus he or she or they can continue their existence for 23 years more or about it, until they will require a new body. It was possible that Yves' work as a handyman was relied upon because no one else could do what he did. I thought perhaps the reason many quit so soon was because they couldn't keep up with the variety of work here. Which could also mean that Hugo must have gone through a lot to get used to working here, since he's a reliever from Shadis.
それよりほら、せっかく来たんだから、君がしばらく働く職場を紹介させて。外観はごく普通の民家だけど、その分内装には結構こだわってるんだ。
Eve smiled and tugged on my hand to bring me through the doorway as the licorice swayed in the gentle breeze. I looked around to discover a number of dolls and figurines, bringing to mind a certain thought about the room. It feels like a child's secret hideout.
アドルフを最初に招いた時にも君と全く同じことを言ってた。すごいね。義理とはいえ、やっぱり二人は兄弟なんだ。
I'm sorry. Sorry, something came up. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to sound rude.
いや、全然。むしろそう見えるように整えてるから。理想的な反応で満足してる。俺、子供心をくすぐるようなものや雰囲気に弱くってさ、一度こだわり出したら止まらなくなっちゃって。
I see. I'm sure if the children at the orphanage were here, they'd be thrilled to explore the entire place. Eve looked around the room he was accustomed to seeing, then explained to me what his job at Kurun entailed. He mentioned it to me before, but this place was not only his workplace, but his home. Apparently, it was a shop he opened when he was 14 years old, just before he met Hugo.
活動時間は主に昼間。基本的に困っている人の依頼はよほどのことがない限り断らずに引き受けるようにしてる。
He went on to explain that he carved out time to work with Adolphe at the core, and was often sent to the slums to provide assistance. Slums, sorry. I quickly parsed through a notebook that Eve gave me, filled with information on the types of jobs done and their respective rewards. Some amounts were pocket change, while several others resulted in huge profits, making his revenue highly unstable. So, the amounts you earn depends a lot on the content of the work order. Huh? But I just noticed that you used to charge a set fee for any job you took on when you first opened the business. Not only that, but the fee was really small.
ああ、もともとはここ人助けをするためだけに開いたお店だったからね。自警団に入ればある程度のお金はもらえるし、お金にこだわるつもりはなかったんだよ。でも当時仲間になったばかりのヒューゴがそれを知った途端、
そんなんじゃリライバー化の資金もろくにたまらねえって叱り飛ばして無理やり金額を引き上げさせたわけだ。
そうそう、彼に言われてようやく無償の善意を引け目に感じたり、裏を読んじゃう人がいるって学んでって。
Before he could finish his sentence, someone came in through the door. Hugo!
よ、元気にしてたか？あの騒動ではあんたも巻き込まれて災難だったな。
In came Hugo, who had been absent from Korun for some time to handle another work order. Seeing that he hadn't changed since the last time I saw him, I breathed a sigh of relief.
つか、こいつの突拍子もないわがままを本当に引き受けちまうとは思わなかった。あんた、ちょっとお人よしが過ぎないか？
It almost sounds like you're talking about Eve instead of me.
ま、それもそうか。
Don't worry, Club. Everyone is nice here. And take care. I'll be waiting for your return.
けど知っての通り、こいつはいつ何をしでかすかわからない無茶なやつだからよ。愛想が尽きたらいつでも放り捨ててくれて構わないぜ。
Eve is a dear friend, so I would never abandon him like that.
だって。
He looks like a cute puppy. I would scratch his cheeks.
なんでお前が嬉しそうな顔してんだ？お前、初めて女のダチができたからって調子乗ってねえだろうな。
I couldn't help but smile at two of them, going at it like brothers. We continued and had a casual conversation. I had a casual conversation with Hugo for a while longer. Later, at Eve's suggestion that I make myself comfortable, I decided to take a quick look around. The place felt strangely large despite its appearance, and what especially caught my eye was... Was this a wooden model? At first, I thought Eve made it, but...
ああ、それは俺がクルーンを開いた頃に 初めて受けた依頼の報酬としてもらったものなんだ。5歳ぐらいの男の子だったかな。お金がないからその代わりにってね。
Sounds like a really lovely reward. You've said that the boy got it from someone else, but he still seemed very
本
happy.
人は申し訳なさそうにしてたけど、正直お金をもらうより嬉しかったよ。俺も当時は自動車なんて数えるほどしか見たことなかったからさ。
Yeah, if you chose the wrong option, your entire route is forfeit. But you need to keep in mind right now that your entire route is forfeit whatever you do. You see, I'll tell this to newcomers. That visual novels had a peculiar trait. Until you will see every bad end, every single bad end in all the routes that game has to offer, you will be blocked from seeing any good ends. So, welcome to suffering, my dear viewers. I could picture a slightly younger Yves happy with the model. This is true, says Ashes. The question isn't the how. That's it, but since we need to see all the bad ends, why not? I could picture a slightly younger Yves happy with the model. If so, then this model was actually an important memento of the start of Kurun.
これ以外にも報酬とは別のお礼としてみんなから手作りの品をもらうことが多くてね。どれも思い出深い。俺の大切な宝物。
Then I'll be sure to take special care of them. You do know they can be damaged if you don't keep the place clean, right?
おっしゃる通り。今後は忙しいのを言い訳に掃除をおろそかにしないよう気をつけるよ。
And yes, Annie, we won't see any good ends until we will suffer our lot. I continued looking around the house, with Eve explaining along the way until we finally came upon a large bookshelf.
ああ、ここには今までに俺たちが受けた依頼の記録が全部残してあるんだよ。
リライバーとして延命した人が前回と同じ依頼をすることも珍しくはないからね。参考資料としていつでも読み返せるようにこうして細かく記録を記してるんだ。
I see. He had his clients' names, a sketch of their faces, and what was done from the start to finish. The two of them explained to me how each record was written with as much detail as possible. Eve, Hugo, would it be alright if I look through the books on this shelf?
うん、それはもちろん仕事の把握にもつながるだろうし、自由にどうぞ。
つか、最初からそのつもりだったよな。なんでわざわざ確認なんて取るんだよ。
Well, I wasn't sure how to say this.
セレス、さっきの言葉は依頼に応じて必要な記録を見たいじゃなくて、仕事の合間にいつでも自由に見る許可が欲しいって意味で言ったんだよね。
Yes.
事情を聞いても？
I nodded silently. You two have been accepting a variety of work orders from various people in Cohen. So I was thinking, maybe Bourreau or someone related to him could have been one of your clients. I figured it was worth a shot to check. Of course, it's only a slim possibility. Bourreau is a serial murderer who recently caused a lot of death in that on that island. But as heroes think, was caught exactly by the team, 3 members of which you can see on the screen right now. It's Sarah's main protagonist, the sweet girl, Yves and Hugo, member of Corps, civilian police of a sort. And as everyone who watched previous streams know, Burrow wasn't caught. He's still there, really close. And really nice. And really yandere. Since we don't know who Burrow really is, well, to be precise, he wasn't caught in the common arc, in the common route. He was just drenched in sulfuric acid and died. Since we don't know who Burrow really is, even if he was in your records, it would be very difficult to find the right one. But it feels wrong somehow to just assume things are all over and forget about what happened. Yes, the game is wild. Hearing my idea, the two of them had surprised look on their faces. I guess this was too random. I was supposed to come here to help Yves, but in reality, I was actually bothering him. Just as I was about to
言
apologize.
われてみればその可能性もないとは言い切れないね。
そうか？あの殺人鬼様がわざわざこんな小さい、しかも自警団の一員がやってる店にのこのこ現れるとは思えねえけど。
それもそうなんだけど、どうにも気になることがあるというか。
あ？
Yves tilted his head in thought.
今思えば、ブローの彼、俺たちから逃げてる最中、路地の位置を完璧に把握しながら移動していた気がするんだよね。
His words immediately jogged my memory. Come to think of it, he didn't hit any dead ends in the entire time before we caught up to him. I hadn't heard of any other incidents apart from the one I stumbled on before.
まあ、事件の直前に下調べしたっていう可能性もあるけど。
んな頻繁に路地へ出入りする人間がいたら、目撃者の一人か二人は出るだろ
う。だからこそ。
There is a chance Burrow already knew Coin well enough to navigate the alleys. He could have been a commoner or at least posed as one, and may have even previously contacted Korun. Does that seem likely?
断言はできないけどね。それが間違っていたとしても、選択肢を潰すという意味で、資料を第三者が読み返すのは悪いことじゃないのかも。
Yves and Hugo looked at me.
まあ、変死事件の方も結局は自警団でも引き続き調査を進めてるからな。正直、ブローと絡めて調査するのもめんどくせえし、セレスが何らかの手がかりを得てくれれば、俺らとしても助かるか。
Hugo shrugged and continued. He said that, though it wasn't obvious, the Corps weren't satisfied with the forced conclusion made by the royal family. So they were patrolling the marsh every day, under the belief that drugs or disease could be a possible factor. So, what you're saying is... Yves nodded in response.
俺みたいな素人がまとめた資料でよければ、好きな時に読んでみて。ブローのことがわからなくても、クルーンの仕事を把握するのにちょうどいい資料になると思うから。
Right. Thank you very much. I'll read over what you two have done and how you've helped people through your work. I'm looking forward to it.
その分今の君がどんな女の子なのか、それを俺に教えてほしい。俺も今の自分がどういう人間なのか言動で伝えられるよう頑張るからさ。
In the same way he said those words to me as a friend, I saw my friendship with Eve as something special and unique. I would do what I could to help him here at Kurun, just like he asked, and I would return the kindness he showed me in the past, present, and in the future. I made that vow deep in my heart, in response to Eve's smile. Eve went on to show me where he kept the safe and their store of inventory, then how he did the books, and how to organize his materials. I then did some light cleaning with the help of Eve and Hugo, so that we could bring in a desk where I could work. Immediately afterward, Kurun had its first job of the day, working with the court to help procure some materials, in order to ensure that everyone wouldn't be surprised by my sudden presence. I decided to head out with Eve and Hugo to the church that was currently being used as a meeting place for the choir. It was the same church where the Society of Exorcists sometimes held their gathering to protest the use of reliable technology. At the unexpected appearance of death,
あれが数えきれないほどの死者を出したっていう死神の女か。
バカ、声がでけえよ。あいつはリーダーの妹だって聞いてるだろ。
I could feel the fear and confusion ripple through the church. The only exception to this was Adolphe, who was assigning his men on the rounds that were to be made.
悪いな。根はいいやつらなんだが。
Don't worry. I was the one who asked Eve to bring me here so that I could introduce myself. More than that, are you really okay with my looking into Burrow? Knowing Adolphe, I expected him to try and discourage me from delving deeper.
過去の資料を読み解く程度で口やかましく言わねえよ。
いやいや、前はその程度のことでめちゃくちゃ言ってただろうが。過保護な兄貴役はもうやめたのか？
過保護が過ぎたと自覚したから余計な干渉は控えてんだ。それにイブがこいつのそばにいるのなら俺も安心できる。その信頼は嬉しいけど、ちょっと俺のこと買いかぶりすぎじゃない？
Adolphe spoke in as few words. Adolphe spoke in as few words as possible, but I could tell he placed full trust in Eve, just from the tone of his voice. but a strange and captivating sigh. Adolphe had always kept to himself, only opening up to Mother and me, so how was Yves able to build such a strong friendship with him? He befriended the brother even I didn't fully know. As questions continued to rise in my mind, I looked at Eve's gentle face. Our eyes suddenly met. I quickly turned my head, embarrassed that he found out I had been staring at him. Suddenly,
ちょっと待ってくれよリーダー。その子がクルーンで働くこと自体はもう知ってたし別にいいんだけどよ。
やっぱり自警団の活動にまでその子を関わらせるのは
やめさせろと。
the man, obviously flustered, as well as those around us, nodded in agreement.
それどういうこと？数日前に俺が説明した時は彼女の事情を把握した上で全員快くうなずいてくれたよね。これで2人の負担が減って自警団の活動に力を注げるならって。
それは。
ああ、反対意見なんて一つもなかったはずだ。だってのに今更になって覆すとか、いくらなんでも都合が良すぎるんじゃねえの。つかアドルフを前に根性座ってんなお前ら。まあ陰口叩くクーネの連中よりかはずっとマシだけどよ。
アドルフの大切な妹ってのは分かってる。それでも怖いもんは怖いんだから仕方ないだろ。
そうだよ。実際お前が住んでたあの施設でも体調を崩したやつが大勢いるって話じゃないか。俺らはまだリライバーにもなれねえし、何かあったらなあ。
本当にそれだけが理由か？
いや、あとはほら、いざ本物を目の前にするとやっぱ怖いっつか。笑いし。
I was too far away to hear the last part properly, but at the very least, I knew that they were all afraid of me. At that, Hugo let out a heavy sigh. Yves was mumbling to himself, thinking of how he could convince them again. I could tell them that the Watchman of Death was suppressing my powers so it was safe. Then again, I hardly doubted anyone would believe any of that. Still, I knew that I needed to say something. I couldn't keep relying on the others. Just as I was about to apologize to everyone for suddenly coming here and scaring them.
こいつは死神なんかじゃない。ただの人間の女だ。
Adolphe's bold voice forcefully silenced everyone's confusion.
なんて叱り飛ばしたところで、お前らの不安を払拭できねえことぐらい、俺も理解してる。だが、その代わりに、こいつを認めることで、ある危険から命を守れると言ったらどうする？いいか、こいつ、セレスは、施設の臨時職員として、運営者から直々に家事の手ほどきを受けている。つまり、
Okay, that would be the good one. Be ready.
単純に料理がうまい。使う材料も至って普通のものばかりだ。ここまで言えばわかるな。お前らがこいつを受け入れてくれた暁には、夜食の調理当番からイブを外し、代わりにまともな料理を作れるセレスを入れてやる。
Everything Eve cooks becomes poisonous. Did I hear him correctly?
Eh?
It seemed Eve thought the same thing I did. Hugo was doing his best to stifle his laughter, while the members of the choir murmured in a different way from before.
イブのあの殺人料理を定期的に食べずに済む。それは確かに魅力的だな。
けどさ、その料理にだって死神の呪いがかかってるんじゃ。
いや、どのみちこのままじゃイブの料理で死ぬ方が先になるだろう。
They all turned and looked at me from a distance, then...
さっきは悪かった。
ちゃんとあんたのことを認めるから、美味しい、いや、安全な料理をどうか俺たちに食わしてくれ。
Before long, everyone heartily welcomed me into the group. I'm not sure I feel right about all this. I glanced to my side and, as expected...
みんなしてそこまで言うことないじゃないか。俺はただみんなに喜んでもらおうと美味しい料理を作ろうとしていただけなのに。
Seeing Eve utterly disappointed... Poor Eve. Eve, I think you're really creative when it comes to cooking. Remember the way you sliced the fish before? The cuts were sliced so thin that they were like glass.
ありがとう。見た目だけでも気に入ってもらえてよかったよ。
Even if that fish is deadly poisonous. Our conversation slowly shifted away from what was supposed to be my ability to cause misfortune to others. Still, this feels so nice. I whispered to Yves, seeing him still glum after hearing everyone's comments. Even the rumors about me can turn into a fun conversation with you and the others. I never thought I'd hear the topic shift from my curse to what someone's cooking tastes like.
君がそんな風に笑ってくれるなら、俺もからかわれた甲斐があったかな。でもいずれは君から調理当番を奪い返すつもりでいるから、そのつもりでいてね。
He issued his change with such a friendly smile. I was filled with joy and relief, knowing that he really did see me as his friend. Still, I wonder why Eve. I wonder why Yves is so caring toward me, and why he looks after me like this. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he actually hated me for what happened. After Yves and Hugo escorted me back, I returned to my room. I sat on the bed and remembered the kind words Yves said before. Each time I experienced his kindness, I felt like I was undeservingly accepting it, and forgetting how I injured him in the past. I'm so horrible.
過去を振り返って君に得られるものがあるならそれでいい。でもただ傷つくだけじゃ意味がない。だから答え合わせは先延ばしにして、互いに勇気を持てたいつかにしよ
う。That's right. I can't just rely on Eve's kindness. I need to do better myself. I wouldn't ever be able to fulfill that promise if I didn't overcome my cowardice. I needed to nurture what little courage I had left through my work at Kurun.
その分 今の君がどんな女の子なのか、それを俺に教えてほしい。俺も今の自分がどういう人間なのか言動で伝えられるよう頑張るからさ。
That promise. I needed to confront the past and apologize. And if possible, I wanted to fulfill my contract with Anku and face Yves with confidence. Facing Yves with confidence as a real human being. I want to become a true friend who can be proud. I want to become a true friend he can be proud of. But I couldn't say that with confidence, not just yet. Yes, I'm still a coward.
そうか。彼女は彼の隣にいることを選んだか。ならば、私には何の憂いもない。だが、そうだな。使命のためとはいえ、礼の一言さえ彼に送ることができないとは、いささか虚しいものだね。
Sorry. The next day, I headed right to Kurun, where I found and greeted Yves and Hugo. Mid-morning was spent mostly on getting rid of all the dust in the rooms. Afterward, I went over their bookkeeping, since they hadn't had much of a chance to go through it yet. The work order for today was a job that I could accompany them to, so reviewing all client records would probably begin tomorrow. We stepped outside and got ready to part ways with Hugo near the Virche, since he had another work order to take care of. Since this was my first time going out on a job, I would just be observing Yves and helping out if the opportunity arose.
イブ、分かってると思うが、いつもの調子で彼女を振り回すんじゃねえぞ。万が一にも怪我なんてさせてみろ。剣を抜いたアドルフがリコリスの花畑まで追いかけてくるだろうからな。
俺もリライバーになるまでは死にたくないから肝に銘じとくよ。そういうヒューゴこそ薪割りの最中にまた腰を痛めないよう気をつけてね。
うっせえ、あんな情けねえ姿もう二度と見せねえよ。
After exchanging playful concerns with one another, Hugo walked away toward the east side of the district. With him out of sight, Eve and I finally turned and went to see our client for today. From what you said earlier, I take it you're planning on becoming a reliver?
意外だった？
I shook my head in response. It's just that there are a lot of others who aren't very fond of the technology, like the Society of Exorcists.
そうだね。こればかりは。
よー、イブ。この間落とした財布を探すの手伝ってくれてありがとな。お前が見つけてくれなかったらしばらく飯も食えなくなるところだったよ。
ああ、どういたしまして。また水路に落とさないよう今度はちゃんと懐に入れて持ち歩きなよ。こればかりはね、感情と命どちらを優先するかは人それぞれ。どの選択が正解かなんて誰にも決めつける権利はない。
あ、イブ兄ちゃんだ。この間は一緒に自警団ごっこしてくれてありがとう。今度は私たちと一緒にお姫様とこの衛兵ごっこして遊びましょう。
わかった。じゃあその時はヒューゴも誘っておくよ。かわいいお姫様。ないよね。ただ俺の場合普通の延命とは少し事情が違って。
ちょっとイブ。私がお金を貸した娼婦の友達が 数日前に行方をくらましてから姿を見せないんだけど、この似顔絵に描かれてる子、あんた知らない？
ごめん、知らない子だな。うちを利用したこともないと思う。よかったら俺とヒューゴで探してみようか。
大した金額じゃないし、わざわざいいわよ。今のあんたにこんな儲けのない依頼を引き受けてる暇があるとは思えないし。
君が本当に困ってるなら暇なんていくらでも作る。俺は儲けなんかより友人である君たちの方がよっぽど大切だからね。
前にヒューゴも言ってたけど、あんたってほんとそういうところ。
イブ、前回井戸を修理してくれたあれだ。うちの妹が焼いた菓子持ってってくれよ。
イブ、うちの店で暴れた酔っ払い客追い払ってくれてありがとう。イブ兄ちゃん、水路で使ってる小舟が壊れたから依頼したいってさっき父さんが言ってた。
私のお姉ちゃんはヒューゴさんと一緒に子供は一日預かってほしいって。
はい、喜んでお引き受けします。詳しい話を聞きたいから後で俺の店に来るように伝えておいてくれる？
は
Oh, that scene was scary. I had heard through rumors how trustworthy and dependable Eve and Hugo were, but not to this extent. Still, I could vaguely sense displeasure and doubt mixed in with the goodwill the crowd expressed. Why was death with Eve? Just as things were settling down, was she now planning on cursing him to death? The girl with blood-stained hands had no right to stand beside him. Had she forgotten what she did to him? Not only was I used to such whispers, I also had no right to be heard by them because they were completely true. I wasn't sure whether Eve could tell that some of the people around were staring at me with suspicion, but after he spoke with those around him, he turned his attention to me. Then, with a calm step forward to close the distance.
何度も話を切っちゃったよ、ごめん。確かリライバー化についての話をしてたっけ？
Eve tried to continue our conversation.
君は将来リライバーになるかもう決めてるの？
No, not yet. I'm still thinking about it. I stammered, a bit nervous by how close he was. I've been saving money just in case, but to be honest, I had no intention of reviving myself and was planning to give the money to Mother if something happened to me. But with my conversation with Anku returning to mind, I couldn't bring myself to speak honestly about it with Eve.
もしリライバー化を決めたときは早めに行動を起こした方がいいよ。必要なお金を用意してもバックアップの順番待ちしている間に死んだら元も子もないからね。
With that, we set off down the road. The whispers around us continued as usual. Eve gave no indication that he was bothered by them, walking as though nothing was amiss.
なあ、イブ。お前が連れてるその女って。
俺の新しい友達。しばらく一緒に働いてくれることになったんだ。
Despite their doubts and fears, Eve responded in his usual cheerful way. I was actually walking through the crowds of coin without keeping my head down. This might be a first. Others gathered around Eve to express their thanks as we made our way through, though they were anxious about seeing me with him. I followed him as he cheerfully walked to see his client. Sorry, I need to make a short, relatively short, I guess 15 minutes long break. So, I will return here in 15 minutes And I hope that you will be there as well. But of course, if you will have something popping up for some stuff to do, feel free to leave, and I express my gratitude for you coming right now. But if not, just please take care of your bodily needs. Have something to take a sip, have something to take a bite on, and I'll be back in 15 minutes. Take care. See you soon. And welcome back, Klopp. And welcome back, me. That me. Where am I? I should be somewhere here. Hello, my dear. I'm back, and we can continue. I hope you took care of your needs, and you have something to drink, you have something to eat, and you're comfortable, nice, cozy. You missed a great joke about Yves' cooking club. That's the main thing you've missed. The first work order of my life that I would be assisting with was... Ah, over there. Look there, Eve. There's a bird with pretty feathers perched on the top of the church steeple. Actually, it looks like it can't fly down. We were here to locate and capture a young man's pet bird, which had escaped from its cage. By the way, Klopp, if you don't mind me asking, where did you went and is everything okay? We interviewed residents in the neighborhood, and many of them reported that a bird of its description was seen around the church. So, after dashing here as fast as we could, we discovered the bird mostly unmoving. I suppose we were lucky that it didn't fly out of the country, but...
あれは自力で降りれそうにないね。依頼主によると、生まれてからずっと室内で飼っていた子らしいから、飛ぶこと自体に慣れてないんじゃないかな。
In that case...
登って迎えに行ってあげるのが一番安全かな。
Eve rolled up his sleeves and did some quick stretches. At Eve's direction, I quickly got approval from the priest of the church and brought an old ladder. We took the staircase up to the spire. With the ladder propped against the wall, I held it sturdy so that it would stay in place. Eve leaned slightly out of the window and stood on the ladder to make sure it was stable.
これならいけるか。それじゃあ早速、迷子の小鳥さんを救ってくるよ。俺の体重に耐えられなくなったら、すぐにはしごから手を離してね。君まで一緒に落ちちゃうから。
Eve said so as if it was only natural, despite a thin rope being his only lifeline. No, I won't let go. I promised you that I'd support you no matter what.
それもそっか。それじゃあ少しだけ俺の無茶に付き合ってくれる？
That is domestic bird club. Well, because owner of the bird was mentioned before. And generally, no, it's not a good idea to take the bird with your bare hands. You need some protection. Diseases and bites are somewhat unpleasant, if I may say so. So, to whatever extent you trust my opinion, trust not to get bitten by bird. Yeah, they hurt so fucking much. Also, hello Lost. Thank you for coming. I'm really grateful you're here. I missed you. Yes, absolutely. On our way up the steeple, a crowd had gathered around the base of the church after having gotten word about it. Yves was preparing to climb up, tying the single thin rope around himself. He stepped onto the ladder, and I held it in place with all my might. My arms went tense as I felt his weight shaking it with each step. But I managed to hold it together and nodded to Yves, who looked back at me with concern. He gave me a reassuring nod in response, then quickly went up the ladder before my arms could give way. He used his hands and feet to climb up the wall, using whatever holds he could find. A strong wind blew from the ocean, as if to get in his way, but Yves simply tightened his grip and kept his body flush against the wall. Good, just a little closer. The crowd cheered on, and my heart wrenched in suspense. He forcefully pulled himself up to the top and landed on the flat area, safe and sound. Eve, how's the bird doing?
少し怯えてるみたい。君から預かった餌を使ってみるよ。
I leaned as far as I could to see Yves. He took out a small pouch from his pocket, then poured a bit into his hand and stretched it toward the bird.
ほら、おいで。俺は君のご主人様の友達だから、怖がらなくて大丈夫だよ。
Perhaps it was hungry, and as it quickly turned its attention toward the feed, the bird cautiously approached the outstretched hand full of minced vegetables. After giving the bird a moment to pick away at its lunch,
捕まえた。
Yves carefully and gently cradled the bird in his hands. Thank goodness. I was worried that you would lose your balance. I let out a sigh of relief so deep that it seemed to let all the air out of my lungs. The crowd below us rejoiced, but my relief was short-lived. I gripped the ladder tightly again, so that Yves could come down safely. Suddenly, there was an unsettling sound. I immediately looked up at Yves. A portion of the roof he was using as a foothold broke apart. Huh? Before I could do anything, it was too late. My eyes met Yves as he slipped and fell down. Yves! I grabbed onto his lifeline, but I couldn't stop him from falling. Yves braced for the impact in a way that protected the little bird instead of himself. He sank straight through the old roof, disappearing into the darkness of the hole he created. Ouch.
びっくりした。俺の立ってるところだけこんなに崩れるなんて。君に怪我はない？自慢の翼が折れてたら飼い主が泣いて悲しむかも。
お久しぶりです、イブ君。こんな形で生徒と再会するとは、さすがに私も予想していませんでした。
Klopp says, at our home we have had to hold the ladder on a shaky and unstable support so many times that I can't even imagine this scene. Yeah, relatable. For me it was on Dacia, but yeah. And Lucas is probably not surprised. Definitely not.
リュカ先生、どうしてここにって、そっか。今日は礼拝日だったんですね。
ええ、天へ祈りを捧げていたところ、その天からイブ君が落下してきた次第で。
俺じゃ先生に加護も祝福もあげることができませんね。
今ならカプシーヌ先生の気持ちが理解できるような気がします。
Lucas pinched his brows together as blood drained from the cheerful Eve's head. All I could do was stand there in a stupor at the sight of Eve joking despite his wounds.
すみません、セレス君。この傷ではお説教をする前に貧血で倒れてしまいそうなので、まずは手当てを先にしてもらっても。
Right. Eve, would you mind parting the hair from your forehead so I can check? Eve nodded in agreement. He walked to an open seat to sit down and parted his hair for me. I needed to see how deep his wound was, so I wiped away the blood from his head. Seeing my fingertips covered in his blood, Eve's brows curved in an apologetic way.
せっかくの初仕事なのに手間をかけてごめんね。
It's fine. Well, not fine for you, but I'm glad you aren't too badly injured. I stared at Eve's blood, then looked up and down his clothes covered in dust. It wasn't a short fall. His hair was hiding wounds, some not so small. Yet he showed no sign of distress, and it didn't look like he was in pain either. Back when he had fought Borah, he swung his sword valiantly and without fear. It seemed he was just good with pain, but just watching him bear his wounds like that was hurting me. Eve. I'm worried about you. I voiced an honest thought as I wiped away the blood. As if he didn't expect to hear it from me, Eve stared with his mouth slightly open. Lucas let another deep sigh at Eve's reaction, then left the room towards the bloody rags. Eve, I know I am useless, but that doesn't mean I'll just sit around and watch as a dear friend gets hurt. I understand you may need to put yourself in harm's way for certain work orders, just like with the Corps. But please, at least allow yourself to say it hurts when you're in pain. Of course, I'll take care of you regardless, but saying that it hurts can help ease the pain too.
ありがとう。でも自分のことを無力だなんて言わないでほしいな。君が命綱を引っ張ってくれていたから落下時の勢いを少し殺すことができたんだよ。
Really? Well, I'm glad to know that I could be of some help. Club says he's like a guy who could have survived the terminal velocity fall and still smile about. He is literally that guy. It will be explained later, but yeah. As we continued to have our open chat, the bird we caught flew above us in circles, chirping as though it was worried too. A short while later, I thanked Lucas for the salve and bandages he provided. After a short check, we found out that the roof was rotting, which led to the break. We decided that we would talk with the Corps later to see if we could work together to get the roof fixed. We then returned the bird to its family and headed back to Kurun. Along the way, Eve was stopped again by the townsfolk and...
小鳥探しの件聞きました。大した怪我じゃなくてよかったです。教会に僕の方からも寄付を出しますので、もし修繕費に困っていたらそのお金を使ってください。
たまには外出をと坊ちゃんを買い物へと引きずり出して正解でしたね。立ち寄ったマルシェはイブさんのご活躍とセレスさんのお話で持ちきりでしたよ。
not just Eve, but me too?
あの無茶ばかりするイブさんがおとなしく死神に説教されたと皆さん驚いていました。
Eve, don't tell me this isn't the first time something like this has happened.
初めてではないけど、そんな頻繁に怪我してるわけでもないよ。
Constantly.
多分
I think.
でも僕クーネの皆さんが普通にあなたの名前を出していたこと嬉しかったです。ブローも死にましたから。この調子で偏見や誤解が解けるといいですね。
I hope so too. Thank you very much, Mathis. Mathis smiled at me gently, considering my peace of mind first. Then, though he must still be coming to terms with the death of his brother's killer.
事件が解決したからとせっかくの縁が途切れてしまうのも惜しい。イブさんや皆さんとは今後も良き交流を続けさせていただけると嬉しいですね。
喜んで。機会があればぜひクルーンのお店まで遊びに来てよ。
はい、楽しみにしてます。
After being stopped on our way back, we returned later than expected.
注意してから1日も経たねえうちに早速振り回してんじゃねえよバカ。
Hugo returned before us, having heard what happened earlier. He hit Yves with a stern hand chop away from his wounds.
さすがに反省してます。けどまさか小鳥探しであんな大騒ぎになるなんて。
I'm just glad the roof didn't crumble where the people were. Of course, it didn't mean I was glad that Eve was the only one hurt. I looked at him to see if he was still doing all right. Eve, the bandage on your hand is falling off.
ああ、本当だ。せっかく君が丁寧に手当てしてくれたのに。
I can wrap your hand
それじゃあ
again.
お言葉に甘えて。新しい包帯を持ってくるから少し待ってて。
And with that, Eve quickly headed to the back, his loose bandage fluttering along the way.
悪いな、こんな遅くまで。大方、あいつのお人よしのせいで余計な道草食ったってとこだろ。
Well, yes, but it was a great opportunity to learn how much everyone likes Eve.
慕われてる。ね。まあ、間違っちゃいないんだが、あんま、イブのことを盲目的に信じるなよ。あいつはあんたが思ってるような人間じゃない。
Huh? I never thought I would hear such a thing from Eve's own partner. After a short silence, Hugo shrugged, as if to say it didn't matter.
イブは見ての通り典型的なお人よしだ。信じるなとは言ったが、その点に裏はねえ。相棒としてのひいき目を抜きにしても、あいつはこの国で一番信頼できる前世の持ち主と断言できる。
Then, what did you mean earlier?
前世が過ぎるあまり、あいつ一周回ってバカになってんだよ。誰かを助けるためなら、自分がどれだけ傷ついても構わず、無茶や無謀を押し通すんだ。
Stupid? That was a terrible thing to say, but I also remembered how Eve fell through the roof of the church and gave little to no thought about his injuries. But doesn't that mean he's just kind-hearted?
ああ、最初はみんな揃ってそう言うな。イブはいいやつ。何があっても彼への信頼は揺るがない。いい友人だってよ。だがあんただっていつかは今までの奴らと同じように。
The others?
ああ、いや、なんでもね。とにかく悪いな。初めての仕事だったのに大騒ぎになっちまって。
No, I'm glad I was able to hear your opinion about Eve. Not to mention, I had a great time being able to walk outside without worry, all thanks to him. He is the embodiment of carefree. Nice to know that it can rub off on a person. Poor Hugo. After having something light to eat at Korun, Eve escorted me back to the orphanage. I asked the mother, who was waiting to hear my report, to come to my room where I began to speak about what happened.
優しく強く、皆からも頼られる。他人の幸せのために尽くす好青年。まるで冒険譚に出てくる理想的な主人公のような人ね、イブさんって。
That analogy suits him well, but Eve isn't a hero in a story. He's just an ordinary person, which is why I don't want him to be so rash when does things, or something bad could happen.
本当に。彼といいお友達になれたようでよかったわ。
Mother listened to my report with joy, but then she suddenly paused for a moment.
こんなことならもっと早く彼とあなたを再会させてあげるべきだったかしら。
Bring us together, not introduce? Was I reading Mother's regretful words correctly? Don't tell me the reason I didn't meet Eve sooner is because...
ええ、偶然ではなく、アドルフや彼を引き取った施設と相談して会わせないようにしていたの。あの火事の件であなたがますます自分を追い込んでしまうことのないようにと。
So Eve came to this orphanage only while I was in my room. In turn, Yves was assigned to patrol a distant area as a corps member so that he wasn't near where I went shopping for goods. But the Bureau incident and the false accusations pitted on me changed things. She couldn't keep me from finally meeting him since he was the deputy director of the corps. Mother explained everything regretfully. I see. I could only return a simple reply.
怒らないの？
How could I be? You arranged everything for my sake and everyone else. Your worries were justified too, and the way we eventually encountered each other was perfect in bringing us together as friends. If I accidentally met Eve somewhere out in town, there is no telling what the results would have been. It would be like any other encounter. I would probably run away in fear without apologizing, or end up hurting him even more. When he thought about it, why did I run away in the first place? Eve was so beautiful back then. There was nothing to be afraid of. I let out a sigh of disappointment, thinking about my past. Mother misunderstood my sigh as being angry, so she apologized. I hurriedly corrected her misunderstanding. The next day, the work order asked for the three of us. We were to go and assist a certain farmer. A number of reliable families existed in the northwest side of the country, where they are focused on agriculture and livestock. Our mission today was to help one of them. Hugo would be handling the horses. Eve and I would be tending to the field of vegetables and flowers to improve the field quality. Before getting right into work, Eve and I looked at the paper from the client with a list of what was needed.
この2種の野菜を次の季節に収穫できるようにしてくれって書いてあるけど、 この2つって見た目は似てるけど、一緒に植えると成長を邪魔し合っちゃうんだよね。与える肥料も違うものになるだろうし、間違えないよう別々の畑に植えた方がいいかな。
Sounds good to me. It's reassuring to be with someone so knowledgeable. After Eve determined a plan of action, I rolled up my skirt a bit and got right into planting the seeds as instructed by him. Phew. I never thought seeding the field would be this tiring. Ah, yeah. Medications. Yeah, I also want to remind everyone to take their medications if they have any. Because missing taking your medications or supplements of sort will be a bad idea, to put it mildly. So, a drink for your health. L'chaim. Also, I'm not sure if I told you before or not, but right now I have a new redeem. You can see on redeem panel. Can you? Let me check quickly. Let me quickly check it. Okay, I can see it on Stream Element Store items, so you can redeem it from there. By clicking it. I didn't mean the Mets reminder. I had it from the very beginning. I meant, well, I think it is. Let me quickly check. Yeah. Yes, it's yes, it's charging for that. Not a lot. It's cheap price. But I have this. What do you mean on the cold down? Sorry, I'm a little bit mad. It seems to be. Ah, okay, I got it. We can't. Does it work? Yeah, that works. Great. I thought it's not working. Sorry, my bad, my bad. It is my bad. But I may return to the novel. My stamina drained steadily and my back slowly began to ache. I thought it wouldn't be too different from planting flowers at the orphanage. In turn, Eve was quickly and smoothly planting the seeds into the ground while removing the weeds he encountered. You really are good at this, Eve. No wonder you're Adolphus' teacher.
慣れだよ慣れ。俺は子供の頃から植物に触れて育ってきたからね。
The knowledge he shared with me earlier was something I had never heard of before. At the very least, I was sure that what he told me was something that wasn't taught at the orphanage or in class. Did someone teach you how to grow and cultivate vegetable leaves?
いたよ。両親じゃなくてじいさまがいろんな植物との触れ合い方を教えてくれた。俺も個人的にも植物、特に花を育てるのが好きだから、いろいろ交配を試してる。
Breed?
異なる色や花同士を組み合わせて、人工的に新しい種類の花を作り出すことだよ。
Wow, you can do that? I always thought that flowers and their colors were set as soon as they started growing.
大半の人はそう思ってるはずだよ。施設で習う知識じゃないしね。
Huh? That means...
俺の家だけに伝わる口伝なんだ。なんでもご先祖様が植物、特に花が好きだったらしくて、彼が独自に研究した植物についての知識を代々口伝で残し続けてるんだって。俺もじい様から聞いたんだ。
Sorry for that loud sound, I had to kill a mosquito. And now, when my murder is completed, ancestors? Grandfather? There were no elderly people in this country, so it was hard to imagine what they looked like aside from being young, but I bet they were gentle and caring like you, Eve. And I remember you said that your knowledge about ingredients and cooking was passed down through your family too.
そうそう。それもじい様が植物の知識と一緒に残した家訓だからって実践形式で教えてくれたんだ。
Eve squinted his eyes as if reminiscing.
目に入った人間以外の生物はすべて食べられると思え。食える時に食っておけ。懐かしいな。じい様と二人、新しい食材を試食するたびに倒れて、試行錯誤で食べる方法を探してたっけ。
I was just glad they didn't consider humans to be food. It's so nice to have the same hobbies and tastes as someone you look up to.
うん。じい様のことは世界で一番尊敬してる。俺もあの人のように、どんなことがあっても花を愛せる人間になりたい。
He really loves his grandfather, doesn't he? As someone who had no memory of her parents, I was slightly jealous. But the fact that Eve later was admitted into an orphanage must mean something happened to that person. Even so, he was blessed with such a loving grandchild who looked up to him. I was sure he was proud of having Eve around.
ああ、今回も俺だけ仲間外れか。こう何度もよそのお嬢さんに相棒の世話を押し付けちまうのは申し訳ねえな。
そうか？あの二人案外うまくやってるみたいだぞ。ほら、顔はうっすらとしか見えないが楽しそうに作業してるじゃないか。例の死神が来ると聞いた時は気が気じゃなかったけど、イブの前じゃ普通の愛らしいお嬢さんにしか見えないな。噂ってのも当てにならないね。寂しいからってふてくされるなよ、ヒューゴ元坊ちゃん。だいたいイブはあの呪われた顔のせいでうちの馬に怯えられてるんだから、一緒に作業できないのは仕方な。悪かった。今のは失言だったな。
謝るぐらいなら最初から言うんじゃねえよ。 どんな相手にもお優しいクーネの英雄様なら何を言っても怒らない。なんて思ってんじゃねえだろうな。いや、思ってんだろうな。お前もクーネの連中も、ついでにあいつ自身も。だがまあ、今回ばかりは俺にも理解できねえわ。なんであんなヘラヘラ笑ってやがんだよ、あいつは。
I can feel some jealousy. Well, after washing off dirt from our clothes, we took a break over some lunch that I prepared. The farmer asked Yves whether he had spare time, then asked Yves and me to take care of his sheep for an additional fee. The sheep were scared of us at first, but for him, of course. Hugo really likes Yves. Well, canonically, like, they're not exactly. It's hard to say. I mean, there is so much gay tension between these two. It's even hard to imagine that it wasn't intentional. It's impossible to imagine that it wasn't intentional. But canonically, they're just really, really, really close friends. But, well, it seemed like they got used to us after a few minutes of us chasing after them. After wrangling a few of them to the feeding area, the other sheep gathered naturally to the area without our help. Drunken Annie says, so history will say they are roommates. Indeed. Well, history will be tragic, because in that game, there is no other way but history to be tragic.
走り回って疲れたね。一段落ついたし、次の指示が来るまでは休もっか。
Yves naturally took my hand as he beckoned me to sit. As if in sync with us, the ship began to lie down as we both took a seat on the ground. The round and fluffy ship slowly dozed off under the warm sun.
羊と触れ合うのは初めて？
Yes, or rather, this is the first time I've touched any animal. I never knew how nice it feels to have animals being friendly and close to you.
かわいい分、お世話も大変だけどね。羊たちがリコリスを食べようとしたときは、さすがに焦った。
I wonder if the licorices or the curse of death affect animals. I've never heard of animals dying from the curse. Yves pondered for a moment to think about my curious thought.
リコリスはともかく、死神の呪いは効かないんじゃない？前にクルーンの仕事で寿命を迎えた牛を見とったことがあるけど、それらしい発作は出てなかったし。
I see. Which meant the curse only affected humans. That said, there were no animals here that could live longer than 23 years, so there was no way of knowing for sure. Maybe Anku knows something about the curse, but maybe he can't talk about it either. Still, I was a bit relieved. Did you hear that, cute little sheep? It seems like you're safe. But it's dangerous to eat licorice flowers, so don't ever try to eat them, even if you're hungry. Eight! Sudden shock came from in front. A spirited lamp came jabbing into me as it bleeded. Unable to take the charge, I fell back lightly onto the back of the large ship. I wonder what it wants.
この子たち、君は働きすぎだからもっと休めって言いたいんじゃないかな。
This time, Eve was charged by a large sheep and fell backward just like me onto the herd of sheep. I checked to see if I was injured, but all I felt around me was... They're so soft and fluffy. The warmth and softness of the sheep made my cheeks blush red. Eve, who was also leaning on one of the sheep, laughed until his shoulders shook.
いい笑顔だね。楽しいうちの仕事。
Yes, very much so, but... Maybe sheep incident club, maybe sheep indecent. It is really alright to have something so nice happen to us during work.
それはもちろん。いや、感じ取れなければクルーンの仕事をしてる意味がない。この国では自分と縁のない他人とつながる機会なんてほとんどない。みんな自分や大切な人の命を未来につなぐことだけに毎日必死になってるからね。でも国中からいろんな依頼が舞い込んでくるこの仕事なら、どんな人間が自分と故郷を同じくしている同郷なのか、それを知ることができる。
He told me how wonderful that was. Hearing Eve made me mutter a certain word. Hometown. I kept muttering the same word over and over again without much reason. I knew what the word meant, but it was the first time I heard it being used. The reason was because everyone lamented the fact they were born in this deathly, unfortunate country. Hometown, homeland. No one used words of affection for their country, even in casual discussions, but
俺はクルーンの仕事を通してそれを知り、少しでも故郷を愛せるようになりたい。自分の生まれた場所を死ぬまで否定し続けるのは悲しいからね。
He told me with a smile that it was too early to be satisfied with what I knew now. I do think that work at Kurun is very nice, but I doubt I have it in me to actually love this country. No. If those I know were born in another country, they might live a life of happiness without any worry about death. So I don't know if I can love this country. But I really do think what you just said is nice and wonderful, Eve. If I can, I would love to know more about the people who share my hometown too. What I was saying was true. Sensing that I was doing my best to relay my feelings, Eve nodded and gave a happy smile. Still, I'm astounded by how kind you are, even to the point of loving this country, Eve.
優しいか。セレス。俺は間違っても君が思ってるような善人じゃない。
Huh? I think we have heard this before.
今のはあくまでクルーンをして気づいたやりがいの話であって、始めた理由じゃない。俺がみんなの力になり愛したいと思うのは決して純然たる優しさではなく、下心あってのもの。
What do you mean by that?
間違っても無償の献身なんかじゃないってことだよ。むしろ意味としては対極の位置にある。だから君もあんまり俺のことを信用しちゃダメ。都合よく利用されるかもしれないからね。
Huh? His warning sounded untrue. Hello, Kachit. I can see you hiding in the chat, but you can't hide from me. So, hello. How was your day? I hope it was treating you gently. his warning sounded untrue. I shouldn't trust him? I shouldn't trust a person who always treated me no differently from everyone else. Judging by his expression, he isn't saying that out of humility. But if he really is deceiving me by acting nice, then he wouldn't make the effort to warn me like this. I'm not sure what I should say, but you're not very convincing with all this ship around you, Eve. I purposely chose to not answer him directly. I didn't want to affirm or deny what he said without knowing him better. I don't want to trust the Eve I've only just heard about over the Eve I already know in front of me. This Eve playing with ship isn't someone I'm looking at as kind or good. All I can see is a happy Eve having fun. So if you want me to believe that you're not to be trusted, I'll wait until you set the mood elsewhere to prove it. No, Eve is a kind soul, but... well, you will see. For Eve, the case is kindness. For Matthias it was revenge and forgiveness. For Lucas it was beliefs and faith. For Cian it was emotions and immortality. For Eve, you will see.
確かに。せめて依頼が終わってから言うべきだったかな。
He leisurely relaxed our bodies. We leisurely relaxed our bodies as we smiled among the bleating of sheep and the gentle sound of the wind. Eve disclosed to me the truth of having an ulterior motive behind his kindness. It wasn't until some time later that I learned what he meant. I found out a few hours later. After receiving our money from the work, the three of us walked together through the town reddened by the setting sun.
この後はどうする？金も入ったことだし、酒場によって酒でも飲んでくか？
それならアドルフも誘おうよ。最近忙しくて一緒に食事すらできてなかったし。あ、でもセレスはどう？飲めないお酒の場を楽しむより、戻って依頼記録の確認をしたいかな。
I was thinking about reading through them, but I don't want to get in the way of your well-earned drinks, so I'll just look through the records tomorrow. A casual conversation among the three of us. It wouldn't be unusual if it didn't include the hated Death and the trusted Kurun. I could tell that people were looking at us, but Eve kept chatting with me, so their stares didn't bother me much. We chuckled and smiled as we made our way through the crowd when... Ah, that's right, Eve. Yesterday, when I was checking your place, I saw that you're running out of anesthetics, so... Huh?
Huh?
A dull and sticky sound much different from water could be heard. I realized that it sounded eerily similar to a sound I heard only recently. I looked at Eve's foot. Beneath him was a bright red pool of blood. Someone from behind him had stabbed him with a knife. The moment I understood the situation, The blood drained from my face even faster than the person who was stabbed. Yves!
とうとうやってやった。さまみろ、クズ野郎。そのまま死神に召されて死んじまえ。
A young man stabbed Eve in the arm and was now holding the bloody knife with both hands.
人の相棒によくも。
Eve! As I cried out, Hugo reached out to grab the man who was turning to run away. But Hugo didn't make it in time. Knowing that he could get away, the attacker looked back at us and smiled eerily as he ran through the crowd. But then...
こら、ダメだよ。どんな事情があってのことかは知らないけど。
He slowly drew his sword out despite his arm being injured.
人を傷つけた以上、詰め所の方で詳しく話を聞かせてくれないと。ね。
He threw not his sword but the scabbard straight at the young man. The scabbard flew through the crowd and struck the head of the young man who had let his guard down. He swayed for a moment, and just before he fell to the ground...
ほう、久しぶりに外出してみれば、なかなか面白い余興をしてるじゃないか。なあ、クルーン。
は？誰だお前。
The man who appeared in front of the culprit mercilessly kicked him in the stomach. He didn't end it there. He stomped it on the young man's chest with his thick salt shoe, pinning him to the ground. The young man's ribs creaked, and he struggled to breathe. The white lab coat swept the air as he turned toward us.
久しいな、クルーンどもに死神の娘。相変わらず騒がしいようで何よりだ。
Sian!
アホが大声で呼ぶな。悪。
I'm sorry, but...
セルネボルからはめったに出ないと言っていたのに、どうしてここへ？
Yves asked as he held his wound.
ちょっとした野暮用でな。だがまず理由を聞くべき相手は俺じゃないだろう。
そう、話せ。僕は何も悪くない。
Sian pointed to the man under his foot, struggling to free himself. Fortunately, Yves' wounds was under control. We took the man into custody, where the corps were waiting. Upon our arrival, I quickly tended to Yves' wound.
屋根崩壊の件といい、定期的に血まみれになる義務でも負ってるのか、お前は。
俺ってそこまで言われるほど怪我ばかりしてる？
Actually, I can vouch that you've gotten yourself injured in front of me countless times. Adolphe and the others were waiting at the base. Sian also came with us to pass the time, and they all surrounded the culprit so that he couldn't escape.
くそ、もっと深く切り込んでれば。
Only now we finally saw the culprit up front before our very eyes. As for his identity, Yves had no idea what his name or background was, but I vaguely remembered his face and his voice from a while back. Isn't he?
僕と君はついこの間まであんなにも愛し合っていたじゃないか。
しつこいわね。話してよ。確かにあなたを愛した記録は覚えているけど、今の私にはあなたへそんな実感も感情もないの。その可能性を承知であなたも誓約書の保証人になったんでしょ。
それは。
悪いけど私、新しく好きな男性ができたの。その人と結婚することにするわ。どうかあなたもあなたで幸せになって。あなただってリライバーにさえなれば、私への恋愛感情なんて全て忘れられるでしょ。
そんな。
It was him, the man whose lover broke up with him after losing all feelings for him. Eve looked confused, probably because he remembered him from before too. But it didn't explain why this man, who had no relation to Eve, attacked him out in the open. Could it be? I recalled something very ominous back then, and carefully began to speak. Don't tell me. Is that someone new? She said before. Is that Eve?
Huh?
The man's vexed groan was proof that what I said was true. Everyone around us began to whisper to each other over the unbelievable revelation.
ほう、純朴そうな顔をしておいて、女で遊ぶ程度の解消はあったか？
からかわないでください、シアンさん。きっと何かの誤解ですよ。俺が彼の恋人を見かけたのは、あれが最初で最後。直接喋ったことすらありませんし、好かれるような機会は何も。
最近は酒を飲む暇もなかったからな。酔っ払ってる間にこいつが何かやらかしたって可能性もなしだ。
But direct contact isn't the only thing that inspires love, right?
ああ、俺もなんとなく予想はつく。
はあ、一目惚れだってよ。リライバーになった後、誰にでも優しくしてるこいつの笑顔を見て惚れ込んだらしい。
一目惚れ。
これだからこいつの博愛主義は。
Figured as much.
くだらん。
Eve was confused by words he didn't hear often, while Cian now looked bored. In turn, Adolphe, who kept seeing people confess their love to Mother at first sight, understood and let out a heavy sigh. But that doesn't give you a reason to hate Eve. It has nothing to do with you and her. You didn't even know that she had any feelings for him.
てめえはあんなくだらねえ理由で人の相棒を殺そうとしやがったのか？
Hugo angrily grabbed the man by the collar and gave him a good shake.
くだらないだと。僕は彼女と添い遂げるためだけに身を削って働いてきたんだ。
アホが！だったらなんでリライバーになった？誓約書にも恋愛感情は確実に消えるってきっちり書いてあるだろうが。
うるさい。愛さえあればそんな障害乗り越えられるって信じてたんだ。
俺の作ったリライバーにそんな不具合が起きてたまるか。
The area was in chaos. The man squirmed and yelled at Eve, who was quietly listening on.
優しい笑顔だ。単に外面がいいってだけだろ。それに噂で聞いたぞ。そいつがつけてる仮面の下には死神に焼かれた醜い肌が広がってるって。さぞかし気色の悪い素顔なんだろうな。それを一目見たら彼女だって幻滅するに決まってる。
I could hardly breathe. And yes, it was rude. Well, I'd say that stabbing someone in back for these reasons is even more rude. But still, Eve looked on without a word. Everyone who met him for the first time slowly lost interest in his character after learning how good he was. The mask that covered part of his face was as familiar to him as his real face, and behind it was proof of the things I carved onto him. Apart from the child at the orphanage who recently tried to take it off, this was the first time I had seen someone point it out.
てめえ少し黙ってろ！
Hugo clenched his fist with rage.
やめろ、ヒューゴ！
But Adolphe's warning was too late. Hugo's fist was raised into the air and quickly moved to strike the man.
なんだ、そういう理由ならまあ仕方ないよね。
The phrase never reached him. The dripping sound of blood was clear. Hugo stopped his swing mid-air, as if his arm got tangled in a net. Silence filled the area. All that could be heard was a soft dripping of blood that the bandages couldn't hold, accompanied by Yves' smile. Everyone's eyes were now focused on Yves. Yves disregarded the chaos and the bad mood in the air. He crouched down in front of the man on the floor and looked him in the eye. He smiled with his usual warmth. He wasn't frightened at all of the man who stabbed him. Yves looked on from behind his mask. The man who had been cursing him a few moments ago suddenly trembled with fear, looking at Yves' eyes.
つまり君はあんな強行に及ぶほど彼女のことを強く愛していたっていうことだよね。なんて一途な人なんだろう。その深い愛を尊敬こそすれ、責めるつもりは毛頭ないよ。
Sorry. One drop at a time. His blood dropped at a steady pace. With no regard to the man going pale in fear, Yves nodded as if he was satisfied. Yes, he is a freak. He is a sweet freak. I would say that actually every single character of that game is freak. Without any exception, like, without any exception. But in the next moment, his expression grew stern.
けど、だからって人を傷つけていい理由にはならない。
Yes, even Ceres. Especially, well, I'm not sure if Ceres is special. Well, it's hard. I mean, they all are good.
奇跡を信じるのは素晴らしいことだけど、明確だった代償に何の覚悟もなく挑み、敗れたからと人に当たるのは違うと思う。今回は丈夫な俺が相手だったからまだ良かったけど、もしも君が先にリライバーとして延命していたら、彼女と立場が逆になっていたかもしれないんだよ。
He shook his head reluctantly.
僕から彼女を奪ったこと謝らないのかよ。
ああ、うん。すまないとは思ってるけど、謝るつもりはないかな。君の望みは彼女の心を取り戻すことであり、同情を得ることじゃないだろうから。
Hearing Yves' reply, the man quickly levanted limp, so Hugo, who had him pinned to the floor, let him go. The man let out a weak chuckle in dismay and set himself up on the ground. I could only look on in a stupor. Yves didn't blame the man who struck him and instead forgave him for all he had done. Each word from Yves was truly kind, but
優しすぎて気持ち悪いな、お前。なんだか別の生き物みたいで。会話が成立してる気がしね
え。Yves laughed and said he had heard it before.
ローで頭を冷やしたら、クルーンへどうぞ。彼女の心を取り戻す方法を一緒に考えようじゃないか。
This time the man chuckled at the offer coming from the one he injured.
連行だ、ヒューゴ。被害者本人の訴えはねえだろうから、2日程度の交流が無難と報告書に残しとけ。
Hugo reluctantly pulled the man by the arm and took him to the detention room. The others snapped back to their senses, and after making sure Eve was okay, they each returned to their boss. Eve, you're still bleeding. I hurried toward him, seeing that the blood was continuing to spread.
屋根を壊したばっかりだっていうのにまたやっちゃったね。
Eve。
神聖な教会を血で汚すなんてリュカ先生に怒られないかななんて。
Eve! He gave an uneasy laugh, and I stopped him from saying anything more. First, we need to bandage you again. You can laugh all you want after we take care of you. You don't want it to leave a scar. He gave me his thanks, but his expression didn't seem to match.
いいのかな。彼を傷つけた俺がそんな簡単に傷を癒して。
Of course. In this case, you did nothing wrong, Eve.
放っておけ、死神の娘。その男がどれだけ強がろうが、いずれにせよベッドに運び入れることになる。
Cian picked up the knife that was confiscated from the man.
やはり思った通り。このナイフには微量にだが毒が塗布されている。傷口が浅い割に出血が多いのもその影響だろう。
A stroke down the blade? Cian carefully ran his finger down the flat side of the knife blade, then chuckled.
切られてから随分と時間が経過していることから、そのうち全身に回って意識を失うだろう。よかったな。説得するでもなく、強制的に手当てができるぞ。
Huh? Upon hearing Cian's words, I quickly turned around and, like a wave quickly striking the shore, Eve suddenly went completely pale in the face and then... Ah, Eve!
なんだ今度はどうした。おいおいまたかよ。そこの天才科学者が何かしたんじゃねえだろうな。
Sorry?
この状態になるまで気づかないとは愉快な男だな本当に。
Without anyone to prop him up, Eve slowly fell to the floor. Later, we moved a bed into Eve's house, with the help of Adolphe and the others who came to help. I was allowed to stay with Hugo to keep watch over Hugo for the night. Over Eve for the night. Sorry. Adolphe reluctantly returned to the base to prepare for his patrol shift.
「毒といっても、所詮これは一般に普及している薬を混ぜ合わせて作った毒もどきだろう。毒性などたかが知れている。適切な処置もしたことだし、命に別状はないはずだ。
With his white lab coat donned, Cian was standing next to the sleeping Eve and quietly gave his diagnosis. That's good to hear. Hello, Chio. Thank you for the raid. Surprised to be sure, but a welcome one. How did your Xenosaga stream went? I hope it was fun. Hello, Beans. We're starting a new route today. And generally, how was the day treating you and Johnny? I mean, Xenosaga is a good time in general. Xena series are great. Is great. Well, you know me. That's good to hear. Thank you very much for helping us, Cian.
一応礼は言っとくけどよ。イブやアドルフから聞いてたのとだいぶ性格が違うな。あんた自分から人助けを申し出るやつじゃないんだろ。どういうつもりだ天才科学者さんよ。
何、単なる市場だ。思い返せばブロー捕獲の件における報酬も支払っていなかったからな。無論見返りとして2、3質問をぶつけるつもりでいたが、肝心の本人がこの状態ではな。 お前に聞いても時間を無駄にすることは確実。また日を改めて問いに来るとしよう。ではな、死神の小娘。せいぜいそれまではこの面白い生き物を殺してくれるなよ。
Understood. Xian spoke in a tone that even I could tell was joking, then left Kurun immediately afterward. Because of Xian, we were able to avoid the worst, but the poison still did get into Yves, which was keeping his fever rather high. I squeezed a towel wet with cold water and looked at Yves' red face as he slept. He did drink some medicine, so his fever should go down by tomorrow, but...
言ったろ。こいつは優しすぎるあまり、バカになってるって。
He is megalomaniac, selfish grandpa. You could even say that he is megalomaniac, selfish daddy. But, he's some nice sides of his own. Kinda.
いや、バカの部分を異常に置き換えた方がしっくりくるか。
Either way, I think I can understand what you mean now, Hugo. Hugo prepared more towels for Yves, while telling me his thoughts. Hearing him finally made me realize Yves is a person who's able to accept both the good and bad in people, and love everything as a whole.
ああ、いわばあいつは博愛精神の権化ってやつだ。
Benevolence, a charitable desire to do good for others.
普通に見えて、優しいなんて言葉一つで表現できるようなやつじゃねえんだよ。
He found meaning in life by saving and loving every person. His kindness even extended to villains, and depending on their reasons and beliefs, he could acknowledge and accept them.
ただの平和主義な、綺麗事好きなお坊ちゃんなら、俺が叱り飛ばすだけで済む。
They did. They really did a whole section on benevolence. Well, I guess today we're extending our vocabulary for those who didn't know that word. It's possible. I didn't know that word always.
だがイブは分別をわきまえてるっつか、締めるところは締めるからな。行動が異常だと分かってても止められねえんだ。こいつが異常であればあるほど救われる人間が生まれるからよ。
どうしてこんなことをするのか、じっくり彼に話を聞いてみたいところだけど、あいにく話が通じる相手じゃなさそうだ。さすがにそのぐらいの区別はつく。徹底的に叩きのめして踏んじばった後、正体と動機をじっくり聞けばいい話だよね。大丈夫。君にどんな理由があろうとなかろうと、俺は最初から全てを否定したりしない。君の言い分は時間をとっていくらでも聞き遂げてみせる。その代わり、その後、君が殺してきた人々の墓とあの少年にどうか詫びてくれないか。
Just like how Yves faced Burrow back then. I heard from Adolphe, who fought with him, that Yves said it with an endearing smile. For me, it was the opposite, I think. For me, it was the opposite. Yeah, it definitely was the opposite in my case. Which is aligns with my personality and life history pretty well. I heard from Adolphe, who fought with him, that Yves said it with endearing smile. He said that Burrow needed to repent for what he had done, but he still respected him as a person and tried to show him love, which was why he said that he could love me even though I was death. And unreasonable as it was for that man to attack Eve, Eve didn't blame him at all. It went beyond the definition of kindness. It was also different from love too. I agreed with what he said, but I still didn't fully understand him, so I continued to listen.
そういう異常性がクルーンや自警団の活動でも時折垣間見えちまって惹かれるっつうか微妙な空気になっちまうんだよ。
Oh no. I suppose his way of thinking isn't normal, but he's doing things because he cares. So it's not fair for people hate him for...
それ原因になったあんたが言う。
は？
少し外の空気を吸ってくる。夕方の野郎の言葉を思い出したら苛立ってきちまった。
Hugo entrusted me with Eve and quietly left the room. What was Hugo going to say? His voice had been too quiet for me to hear. Eve and I were the only ones in the room. The bowl filled with water was reflecting the beautiful crescent moon that peeked through the window. But the master of this room was in no state to see the moon in the bowl or the actual one in the sky. He is not sweating as much anymore, but he still looks like he is in pain. Maybe the fever was acting up again. I wet the towel that was on his forehead so that it could be placed back on to cool him, but I don't think it's working very well because his mask is in the way. Hugo and the others carried Yves to the bed without any concern about him having his mask on, which meant, unless there was an emergency, he probably didn't want to take his mask off. At least that I could tell. If so, then I can't take the mask off his face, even if I'm trying to take care of him. If so, then I could at least try to wipe the sweat around his mask. Eve's eyes closed from the pain, suddenly opened wide. Huh? He quickly grabbed my hand that was near his face. For a moment, Eve's eyes wandered a bit as he panted in pain. Eve? Is there a problem? I hesitantly spoke Eve's name, at which point he let go of my arm.
ごめん。仮面を外されるかと思って。痛めてない？
I'm fine. Please just stay still and rest. I would rather want to believe that my whole life was a fever dream, but no, in both cases. Eve probably didn't have the strength to fight right now, as he complied and relaxed on the bed. I offered him a lullaby to help him go back to sleep. Hugo told me that you're able to love anyone no matter who they are, Eve. So I have to ask, why are you so kind, even to someone as sinful as death?
違うよ。荒れるんじゃない。俺はあろうとしてるだけだ。すべては。こんな自分でも愛してくれる人を見つけるために。
Eve gently touched the mask that even he wouldn't remove. The reason why Eve showed so much love was because of the burn I inflicted upon him. That was easy to tell just by looking at his actions, which was why. Eve, after living with you for some time now, I've come to know both good and bad sides of you. At the same time, I've also told you everything about myself that I could. So if you don't mind, can I please ask about your past? How is the burn I caused you related to your kindness? Please, tell me. Eve looked at me with gentle eyes.
そっか。勇気持てたんだね。ただ俺の過去はきっと君を深く傷つけることになると思う。それでも聞きたい。
After a short pause, I nodded in response. Memories of that horrific day returned. Who are you? Why are you?
諦めちゃダメだ。誰か助けた。俺は。いや、この子だけでも。
7 years ago, the young boy who risked his life to save me from the fire. His face was burned from the flames. That was you, right, Yves?
そうだよ。俺もあの時のことははっきり覚えてる。
Yves closed his eyes and began to speak, as if telling me about a dream. A dream filled with flames. I was born as a commoner in Coin. Aside from the fact that my family had some odd customs and traditions, I was raised in a family like any other. The grandfather I adored was already gone back then, but my parents, who were both relievers, were doing fine. I couldn't put it in any other way then. My life was pretty good. That night, I visited the orphanage to play with one of the boys I met by chance in town. I had no idea where the fire started. I was staying in my friend's room when suddenly I heard a huge explosion, and in the next moment, my body was blown back and I lost consciousness for a moment from the pain of slamming against the wall. It must have been 10 minutes or so. The growing heat woke me up, and by then, a lot of the kids and the staff were dead, either from the fire or from the rubble that fell on them. I was screaming in fear at the sight before my eyes, but I ran through the flames in the hopes of finding my friend or any survivors.
誰かいないのか。生きてる人がいるのなら返事をしてくれ。
It was then that I heard someone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's because I'm here. Inside that miserable room filled with red and black flames, being buried by debris, I looked inside to find a girl in the center of the room, apologizing endlessly. I had no idea why she was crying like that. And Your voice was so filled with grief and despair.
あの子、ここで焼け死ぬつもりなのか。
I couldn't believe how calm I was.
自分を泣きながら責めて死ぬなんて、そんな最後悲しすぎるじゃないか。
Before I knew it, I ran toward you to shield you from the flames closing in. From here onwards, you may not be able to recall these memories. I somehow endured the flames and carried you outside on my back, but by then, a third of my face had been burned. It seemed that the burns I sustained were different from any other burn. Everyone who saw my face screamed at how hideous I looked, and wouldn't even come near me. Even the doctor who tended to my burns tried to look away from my face. Of course, a monster like me couldn't be accepted by my parents, who had lived a normal life until now.
なんということだ。この子はあの施設にいた死神に取り憑かれたに違いない。違うよ、父様、母様。あの子は何も悪くない。俺は二人の知ってるイブのままだよ。死んじゃったじい様や二人との思い出だってちゃんと覚えて。
だったらその醜いやけどは何よ。私を母だなんて呼ばないでちょうだい、この化け物。
I was called an abomination and left in the licorice field all alone. He could have become the sickest Zuko cosplayer. Was he Zuko? Yeah, Prince Zuko cosplayer. He could, if he only knew about Prince Zuko. Actually, I wonder, would Yves be into cosplaying? I think out of all the characters here, Yves and Matthias are two the most likely to be into cosplaying. I was called an abomination and left in the licorice field, all alone. If it weren't for one of the staff from my orphanage who just happened to pass by, I would have died from my wounds. But I was still treated like a monster at the orphanage. The kids around me bullied me, saying that I was Death Puppet. They threw rocks at me each time they saw me. I would step out into town, but none of the adults spoke to me, or even bothered to look at me. The adults at the orphanage treated me well, but...
かわいそうに。この子が一体何をしたって言うんだ。
ええ、両親にも捨てられて、本当に哀れ。 せめて私たちが守ってあげなくちゃ。
Their kindness came from pity. The more of their kindness I accepted, the more crushed I felt by helplessness. A few months passed. Then one day, as I was playing out in the garden alone like usual,
やっと見つけた。君がかの花に愛された少年だね。
The man introduced himself as a merchant. His face and his voice are a distant memory. Thinking about it now, I should have been suspicious, given how otherworldly he seemed for a supposed merchant. But I was dying to talk to someone, since no one ever wanted to look at me. I did what I could to try and keep him with me for as long as possible, so I accepted his introduction wholeheartedly. But he then started to look at me with a really sad expression.
すまない。あの運命を知りながら、私は斧が望みのために君の幸福を焼き捨てた。詫びにすらならないだろうけれど、せめてこれを贖罪の証として受け取ってくれまいか。
I didn't pay him anything, but he still gave me a mask with a beautiful design. I put it on just to give it a try, and it seemed like the people around me reacted a bit better. which was why, ever since then, I made it a duty to put this mask on over my scars so that I wouldn't make others around me uncomfortable. Yes, you wouldn't confuse his voice. It's Anku. Yves' memories of the flames were beyond horrific. Yves, the majority of his face was burned after saving the heroine from a fire 7 years ago. His parents disowned him because of his appearance, and he's been kept at a distance by others ever since. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was reliving my feelings from before. I felt like wailing from the despair and guilt rising from within me. But I had no right to do that. The one who should be wailing and blaming me was Yves. It's my fault. My fault. I took away your family and happiness and destroyed your life. If only I hadn't been there, then... No. If only I had died earlier.
やめて。その言葉だけは聞きたくない。俺の大事な友達の命を否定することは、たとえ君自身でも許さない。俺は君を助けたことは後悔なんてしてないよ。俺は当時たくさんの人に愛されながら生きていたから、今度は自分が誰かを愛し助ける番だって自分で決めて。
Continue with a smile. Sure, I now had a mask to hide my burn, but I was still alone, and the fact that I saw how my parents loved each other.
愛してるって言ってほしい。
Pity for my burns aside, I simply wanted someone to love me. It was around then that my desire to be loved escalated into something abnormal. I thought to myself about what I needed to do in order to have someone love me, despite my hideous face. It turned out the answer was very simple.
人を助け、愛し続けていれば、いつか俺のことを純粋に愛してくれる人が現れるはず。
With that thought in mind, I left the orphanage a few years later and found a place which became Kurun. But life doesn't work how you want it to. No matter how many orders I fulfilled. Most everyone already knew who I was and what happened. Indeed, there are some Phantom of the Opera vibes here. So they all looked at my mask with pity. I did earn their trust, but I wasn't able to earn anyone's love. Some girls did say that they wanted to be in a relationship with me. Others said they'd be friends with me, but each time I showed them my face, they ran away screaming. The same thing happened each and every time eventually wore out my heart. I pretty much gave up on being loved and decided to place my bets on my next life. As a reliver, remaking my body from the ground up. After all, injuries and diseases would become things of the past. And so, the reason I loved everyone was because I wanted to be loved in return. That day, I extended my hand to you, simply because I was hoping you would be different. I was far from being a good guy. The real source of the kindness that everyone spoke about
偽
was...
善とすら言えない愚かな私欲だ。
Even if I was foolish, I didn't want others to go through what I did. I made the decision based on not wanting people to experience the emptiness of the hopeless suffering of being unloved. I needed to show the same love that I wanted to receive. Even if my love was twisted, it was worth it. If I could save even one person, which was why.
たとえ俺を愛する者がいなくとも、俺は全ての人を愛するよ。どんな人間が相手だろうと。生まれ落ちたことだけは否定せず、一応自分が異常だっていう自覚はあるけど、この生き方だけは譲れそうにない。君が人間だろうが死神だろうが、こうして俺の前で懸命に生きている一つの命には変わりないなら、君は他の人間と等しく俺が愛すべき存在だ。
I'm not sure if that's yanderism. I would actually say that it's quite close to weird form of agape. A love to all living beings. Drunken Annie says, I heavily fuck with whatever is wrong with him. And Asha says that it is generalized yanderism, terminal. While I believe that is agape, maybe it should be clarified. You see, in Greek language, well, I'll correct myself, I don't know modern Greek. In ancient Greek language, there was quite a few words for love. Philia, philateleia, eros, and agape. And storge. I forgot storge. Love to some activity, to some object, some unpersonalized, some directed but unpersonalized love. Philia. Sort of a brotherly love. Or love to yourself. Philateleia. Erotic love. Eros. Familial love. Storge. And the last one, agape. Agape is somewhat close to Christian concept of love to humanity, and to everyone, every living being, love to the world. It is a form of love that is dispersed for everything and everywhere, and expects nothing in return. Love of everything for whatever it is, the way it is. Just for the fact that it is, it exists. I see. So the love he expressed to me back then encompassed everything he went through. Eve's fever subsided a bit by the time he finished talking. I carefully propped him up so that he wouldn't fall over. As he got up, our eyes met. I could see his eyes regain their light, with the gold from my hair reflected inside. I didn't know what kind of emotion I should respond with, as his translucent eyes captivated me. I'll finish the stream soon. Yeah, thank you for joining me. I hope you will have a good day. And take care. Yeah, indeed, take care, Ashes. Thank you for joining me today. I hope it was of some interest for you. No amount of apologies would be enough to show him that I was sorry. If possible, I would like to pay for my sins right now for destroying his life, but the option of atoning with my death was completely denied. If so, the only thing I could do was... Eve, even if you think you're a fool, your love saved me, Eve. Trying was all I could do now. I was happy to have someone other than Adolph extend their hand to me. You didn't treat me as death or some kind of poor girl, which made me enjoy life as a normal human. Words weren't enough to express my gratitude. Eve, your life is needed much more than you think. There is a lot of others in this country who have been saved by your kindness. Eve's eyes opened wide. He then let out a smile that could only be expressed as innocent and childlike.
もう泣くか笑うかどっちかにしようよ。
He gently wiped my tears with his finger.
けど、ありがとう。こんなに歪んだ愛を。誰かに誇ってもらえたのは初めてだ。
Eve continued saying that he was glad he mustered the courage to tell me everything. Memories of those flames would never heal, and I was sure Eve's soul will continue to burn, making him suffer to no end. But, Eve, let me formally give you my thanks. Thank you very much for saving my life. My smile may not solve anything, but it was the best I could give him now. I was sure this was the right thing to do.
こちらこそ。生きていてくれてありがとう。君との再会を手繰り寄せてくれたリコリスたちが起こした奇跡に心からの感謝を。
Giving thanks to the licorices. You keep surprising me, Eve. That said, I was also grateful to the licorice noirs for beckoning me toward them that night. So why were you in the licorice field that night, Eve? Looking back on it now, I thought I saw you crying.
その少し感傷に浸ってたというか、あそこはもともと俺がいるべき場所というか。ごめん、今は教えられない。いつか折を見てこっそり教えるよ。
You're only making me more curious by putting it that way.
本当に恨みの一つもないのな。いや、恨むどころかまるで最初からいたみてえに馴染んじまって。あいつ ああいう女が好みだったのかね。
We have heard some sound. Suspicious one.
これは呪いではなく約束だ。ありがとう友よ。君が守りしリコリス・ノワージュを必ずや救済の未来につなげると私は誓おう。
Okay, and we have finished the first chapter of Evermore, so I think we can stop here. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you, Club. Thank you, Whale. Thank you, Ashes. Well, Ashes already departed, but still, thanks to Ashes. Thank you, Lost Heart, if you're still here. Thank you, Drunken Annie. It was really nice to see you popping in. Thank you, Chiu, and everyone who came along with Chiu. It was pleasant to have you. I enjoyed your company, as I hope you have enjoyed mine. And the scenery of our cute boy, Yves. I like him. He's nice. He's the best boy. So, tomorrow, at the same time, I will start the stream and we'll continue. Also, if anyone wants to get announcement aside from the Twitch, I have Discord server, but right now, if you want to go there, I would ask you to tell about it me personally, in the chat or somewhere, because right now I personally given invites. The server is not ready to have an invitation link opened always, because I'm lazy, I guess. And let me see. You're asking if will we rate someone. Okay. I can see someone else streaming an Atomic game. So it will be correct to rate them. I haven't visited that channel before, so I don't know the streamer. But I know the games they're playing, and it's pretty good at all my visual novel. Again, thank you. See you next time. I'll be glad if I'll see you next time. Bye.